The sun rose slowly over the hills of Makando, painting the sky in soft orange and gold. The small village was waking up, smoke rising from cooking fires and the sound of roosters filling the air. In a little hut near the edge of the forest lived a 7-year-old girl named Zola. She was small, cheerful, and full of curiosity. Her mother often said she had the heart of a lion but the hands of an angel. That morning her mother asked her to fetch firewood before noon. Zola tied her small basket around her shoulder and set off toward the forest. She loved the sound of birds singing above and the smell of fresh earth under her feet. The path was quiet except for the wind dancing through the leaves. Zola hummed a little tune her grandmother had taught her and walked deeper into the forest, picking up dry sticks along the way. After some time she heard something unusual, a soft sound almost like someone crying. At first she thought it was the wind, but then she heard it again. It was a weak voice calling for help. Zola froze for a moment, her small heart beating fast. She looked around but saw no one. The forest suddenly felt bigger and quieter. "Is someone there?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. A faint reply came, "Help, please." Zola hesitated but then took a deep breath. Her mother always told her, "Do not ignore a cry for help even if it comes from the shadows." Gathering her courage, Zola followed the voice. She pushed aside tall grass and stepped over fallen branches until she saw a figure lying near a large tree. It was a woman, thin, weak, and covered with dust. Her clothes were torn and her face looked pale. She seemed to be in great pain. Zola slowly walked closer, unsure if she should speak. "Are you hurt, Mama?" Zola asked softly. The woman opened her eyes weakly. "Water?" she whispered. Zola quickly opened her basket. Inside, she had a small gourd of water and a piece of bread her mother had packed for her. She lifted the woman's head carefully and helped her drink. Then she broke the bread in half and gave her a piece. The woman chewed slowly, her lips trembling as if she hadn't eaten in days. "Thank you, little one," the woman said in a faint voice. "You have saved me." Zola smiled shyly. "I only gave you water," she said. "My mother says we must help people when they are in need." The woman looked at her with weak but kind eyes. "You are a good child. What is your name?" "My name is Zola," she said proudly. "What is yours?" The woman hesitated. "You may call me Mama Kina," she whispered. "I was traveling through the forest but I became sick and lost my way." Zola nodded and said, "Don't worry, Mama Kina. My village is not far. I will call for help." But the woman held her hand gently. "No, stay a while. Your voice, it brings me peace." So Zola sat beside her. She picked a few large leaves to fan Mama Kina and keep away the flies. She even sang softly, her small voice carrying through the forest. Hours passed, but Zola did not leave. When the sun began to sink lower, she realized her mother would worry. She stood up and said, "I will bring the villagers. Please don't move." Mama Kina smiled weakly and nodded. "I will wait, my brave little girl." Zola ran as fast as her legs could carry her. Branches scratched her arms and the ground was uneven, but she didn't stop. When she reached the edge of the village, she shouted for help. The men quickly gathered with a stretcher made of bamboo and cloth. Zola led them back into the forest, guiding them through the path she remembered. They found Mama Kina exactly where Zola had left her. The men carried her carefully back to the village while Zola's mother scolded and hugged her at the same time. "You scared me, child. The forest is not safe." "I had to help her, Mama," Zola said softly. She was alone. That night, the villagers gave Mama Kina food and a place to rest. The healer came and gave her herbs for her fever. Everyone talked about how brave little Zola had been to save a stranger. Some said it was dangerous for a child to walk deep into the woods alone, but others said the girl's courage was blessed by the ancestors. Zola, however, did not feel like a hero. She just felt happy that Mama Kina was safe. She sat by the woman's side and held her hand. Mama Kina looked at her and said, "You have done something kind today, Zola. The forest will not forget your goodness." Zola tilted her head, puzzled. "The forest remembers?" Mama Kina smiled faintly. "Yes, every tree and every wind keeps the memory of those who act with love. One day you will understand." Before Zola could ask more, the woman fell asleep. Zola quietly watched her, wondering what kind of life this stranger had lived, and what had brought her into the deep woods. She didn't know it then, but this small act of kindness would change her life forever. The next morning, Zola woke early to check on Mama Kina, but when she reached the hut where the woman had slept, the bed was empty. The villagers searched, but Mama Kina was gone. She had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a faint smell of herbs and a few footprints that led toward the forest. Zola's mother said softly, maybe she went back home. But Zola wasn't sure. She looked at the edge of the forest, the trees whispering softly in the morning wind. Somehow she felt that Mama Kina had left for a reason, and that they would meet again someday. That night as she lay in bed, Zola thought about Mama Kina's words. The forest remembers. The phrase echoed in her mind. She didn't know what it meant, but she felt a strange warmth in her heart. She didn't know that deep in the forest an old spirit was watching her, the same one she had unknowingly saved. From that day on, Zola often returned to the forest, not out of fear but with a feeling of peace. She talked to the trees, listened to the wind, and always carried an extra piece of bread, just in case someone else needed it. Years later she would finally understand why that day had happened, but for now she was only a small girl with a big heart, unaware that her simple kindness had awakened something powerful and lasting, something that would one day return to her life in a way she could never imagine. The sun shone brightly over Makando the next morning. Birds sang from the trees, and the air smelled of rain and flowers. Inside one of the huts, Mama Kina lay on a mat, her face still pale but her eyes full of life again. The villagers had cared for her well. They gave her soup, herbs, and a warm blanket. Little Zola came every morning to check on her, bringing fruits or flowers from the forest. Everyone in the village spoke kindly of the little girl who had saved a stranger's life. Mama Kina often watched Zola as she played near the fire or fed the chickens. There was something special about her, a light in her smile, a warmth in her voice. She was young but carried a gentleness beyond her years. One afternoon as the sky turned orange with sunset, Mama Kina asked to speak with Zola alone. "Come here, my child," she said softly, her voice still weak but filled with kindness. Zola ran to her and sat beside her mat. Mama Kina reached into a small cloth bag beside her and took out a wooden necklace. It was carved from dark wood, smooth and shining in the light. Strange patterns were drawn on it, circles and lines that Zola could not understand. "This is for you," Mama Kina said, placing it gently around Zola's neck. "It is old and simple but it carries power, not the kind that you see but the kind that guides hearts." Zola looked at it curiously. "It's beautiful," she said. "What do the marks mean?" Mama Kina smiled. "They mean kindness, courage, and truth. One day this necklace will show you the way when you are lost. But until that time comes, keep it safe and close to your heart." Zola nodded, her small fingers touching the carvings. "Thank you, Mama Kina. I will never take it off." Mama Kina placed her hand on Zola's cheek. "You have a kind heart, my child. The world needs more hearts like yours." For a moment they sat together in silence, the wind softly moving through the open doorway. Outside, the village children were laughing and chasing each other. But inside the hut, it felt as if time had stopped. That night Mama Kina seemed peaceful. The villagers thought she would stay a few more days to regain her strength. But when the morning came, her bed was empty. Her blanket was neatly folded, and the small bag she carried was gone. No one had seen her leave. The villagers searched the paths leading out of Makando, but there were no footprints. It was as if she had simply vanished into the forest. Some people whispered that she must have been a spirit. Others said she was a healer who moved from village to village, helping those in need before disappearing again. Zola's mother believed she had gone home quietly as many travelers did. But Zola wasn't so sure. She held the wooden necklace in her hands and looked at it closely. The carvings glowed softly in the morning light, as if the wood itself breathed. She felt a strange warmth from it, something that made her feel both safe and curious. That night she asked her mother, "Do you think Mama Kina will come back?" Her mother smiled gently. "Maybe, my child. People like her walk where they are needed. But she left you that necklace for a reason. Perhaps it is her way of staying close." Zola nodded. "I'll take care of it," she said firmly. From that day on she wore the necklace everywhere. When she went to fetch water from the stream, it hung around her neck. When she went to school or helped her mother with chores, it was always there. Some children teased her, saying it looked old and strange. But Zola didn't care. It reminded her of Mama Kina, the woman with kind eyes who spoke of courage and truth. As the months passed, Zola sometimes dreamed of the forest. In her dreams she saw Mama Kina walking among tall trees, her long dress brushing the grass, her eyes glowing like stars. In every dream Mama Kina would turn to her and smile, saying the same words, "Keep your heart pure, little one. The forest remembers." Each time Zola woke from such dreams she would touch the necklace and feel calm again. It became her comfort whenever she was afraid or sad. Years later, during a strong storm, lightning struck near the edge of the forest. The villagers ran to see what had happened. A large old tree had fallen, revealing a small hollow space beneath its roots. Inside was a piece of cloth, the same kind that Mama Kinna had once carried. It held dried herbs, beads, and another necklace that looked just like Zola's. The villagers murmured in surprise, saying that the healer's spirit must still be watching over them. Zola stood quietly, staring at the fallen tree. The rain soaked her hair and clothes, but she did not move. In her heart, she felt that Mama Kinna was still somewhere near, maybe in the wind that blew through the leaves or the soft rain that touched her skin. That night, as thunder rolled across the hills, she sat by the fire and held her necklace tightly. She remembered every word Mama Kinna had said, about kindness, courage, and truth. Though she was still young, those words had become part of her. In the years that followed, Zola grew into a thoughtful and kind young girl. Whenever someone was sick or lonely, she would visit them and bring food or herbs. People in the village began to say, "Zola has the hands of a healer." She didn't understand it then, but the gift Mama Kinna saw in her had already begun to grow. Sometimes, when Zola sat alone by the stream, she could almost hear a whisper in the wind, soft and familiar. "I am proud of you, my child," it said. She would look around, smiling though no one was there. The necklace, once dull and old, now gleamed faintly in the sunlight. It seemed alive, as if it carried a secret waiting to be revealed. But Zola never tried to find out what it meant. She only knew that it had been given to her by someone whose kindness had changed her life. And though the world around her kept changing, the seasons, the people, the years, the memory of Mama Kinna stayed the same. The gentle woman who had come from the forest, who spoke of goodness, and who disappeared like a breath of wind, leaving behind a promise that one day the truth would return. The years moved gently through the village of Makando. The once small girl, Zola, had now grown into a young woman. She was known for her kindness and her calm spirit. Whenever someone was sick or hungry, Zola was the first to arrive with food, herbs, or comfort. She had learned to use forest plants to heal small wounds and fevers. Many said she had been blessed by the spirits of the forest, though Zola always smiled and said, "I only do what my heart tells me." But life in Makando had not been easy. One year the rain stopped coming. The rivers dried up and the crops withered in the sun. Children cried from hunger and old people fell ill from thirst. The villagers prayed and waited for rain, but the sky stayed empty and gray. Even during these hard times, Zola did not give up. Every morning, she went to the forest to collect herbs and fruits that still grew in the shade of tall trees. She shared what she found with her neighbors, often giving away her own food. "If we stand together, we will survive," she would say. Her courage gave others hope. One hot afternoon, when the ground cracked beneath her feet, Zola saw an old man walking slowly along the village path. His back was bent and his walking stick trembled with each step. He wore a long brown robe, dusty from travel. His eyes were tired, but they carried a strange brightness as if they had seen many things. Zola hurried to help him. "Grandfather," she said gently, "you look tired. Please come rest." She guided him to her hut and brought him water from the last clay pot she had. The old man drank slowly, then looked around the small home. His eyes fell on the wooden necklace that hung around Zola's neck. For a moment he froze. His hand began to shake slightly as he pointed at it. "Child, where did you get that necklace?" he asked, his voice trembling. Zola touched the necklace softly. "This? I have had it since I was a little girl. A woman gave it to me, a woman I helped long ago in the forest. She was weak and sick. Her name was Mama Kinna." The old man's eyes widened in shock. He gripped his walking stick tightly. "Mama Kinna?" he whispered. "You saw her, with your own eyes?" Zola nodded, unsure why he seemed so amazed. "Yes. I found her lying under a tree. I gave her water and food. The villagers helped her recover, but the next morning she was gone. No one ever saw her again." The man leaned back and closed his eyes. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke softly, almost as if to himself. "So she was alive, after all this time?" Zola frowned slightly. "Do you know her, grandfather?" He opened his eyes again. "Know her? Every healer in this land knows her name. She was called the healer of the forest. Mama Kinna, the one who could speak to the wind and heal the dying. But many years ago people said she vanished. Some believed she was taken by spirits. Others said she left because her heart was broken." Zola's heart began to beat faster. "Broken? Why?" The old man sighed deeply. "Because her only child, a baby girl, was stolen during a fire in the village where she once lived. She searched for years but she never found the child. After that, she disappeared into the forest and lived alone, helping strangers. She said she would never stop wandering until her heart found peace again. Zola felt the air around her grow heavy. Her fingers touched the carvings on the necklace. She never spoke of a child, she said quietly. She only told me to keep this necklace close, that it would guide me one day. The old man's gaze grew distant. That necklace, he said slowly, is not just a charm. It was made for her child, carved by Mama Kina herself. The symbols mean life, love and return. Only her blood would carry its warmth. Zola's breath caught in her throat. Her blood. The old man nodded. Yes, child. Only her own daughter could wear it and feel its warmth. Others who touched it said it was cold like stone. Tell me, does it ever feel warm to you? Zola looked down. Her hand trembled slightly as she pressed the wooden charm. Yes, she whispered. It always feels warm, like a heartbeat. The old man stared at her in silence. The fire crackled softly between them. Then he said in a low, trembling voice, Then, my dear, you are not just a girl from Mikando. You are the daughter of Mama Kina, the lost child of the healer of the forest. Zola's world seemed to stop. The walls of her hut faded away. She felt dizzy, confused and full of questions. That can't be, she said, shaking her head. My mother, she told me I was born here. She raised me since I was a baby. The old man placed his hand gently on her shoulder. Maybe she found you, child. Maybe she saved you when the fire took everything. But that necklace, it carries the truth. Mama Kina's blood flows in you. Tears filled Zola's eyes. She stood and stepped outside looking toward the forest. The trees swayed in the wind, whispering softly. The same forest where she had once found a dying woman, who now seemed to be part of her own past. That night, Zola could not sleep. She sat by the fire, staring at the necklace. Images of Mama Kina's gentle smile filled her mind. The way she had spoken, the warmth in her hands, the strange sadness in her eyes. It all made sense now. The way Mama Kina had looked at her, with a love that felt deeper than a stranger's gratitude. The way she had said, You have a kind heart, my child. Maybe Mama Kina had known the truth even then. Maybe she had recognized her own daughter but had chosen silence for reasons Zola did not yet understand. The next morning, Zola walked to the forest edge. She stood beneath the tall trees where sunlight broke through the leaves. The air smelled of wet soil and wildflowers. Holding the necklace close to her heart, she whispered, If you are out there, Mama Kina, I will find you. Her voice was steady, filled with courage and pain. Somewhere deep among the trees, a wind stirred gently, carrying the faint scent of herbs and smoke, the scent Zola remembered from years ago. The forest seemed to whisper in reply, soft and loving, The forest remembers, my child. And for the first time in her life, Zola understood what the carvings on the necklace truly meant, that love, no matter how lost, always finds its way home. Zola woke early the next morning, the mist still heavy in the air. She could not stop thinking about what the old traveler had told her, that Mama Kina might still be alive, and that the necklace she wore had a deep meaning. She felt something pulling her heart toward the forest, the same forest where everything had begun years ago. Without telling anyone, she packed a small bag of food, carried her walking stick and set out toward the woods. The forest was silent except for the soft sound of birds waking with the dawn. The trees stood tall, their branches touching above her head like old friends whispering secrets. Zola remembered being a child, running through these same trees, hearing her own laughter echo through the woods. But now she walked slowly, her steps careful and full of purpose. She followed the same narrow path she had taken years ago, where she had found the weak woman lying under the big tree. The air felt familiar, the smell of damp soil, the hum of insects, the gentle rustle of leaves. As she went deeper, she began to see signs that someone had once lived there. Old fire pits, broken clay pots, and hanging herbs drying in the air. After hours of walking, she saw something through the vines, the faint outline of a small hut covered in moss and tangled creepers. It looked abandoned, as if no one had been there for years. Yet smoke rose faintly from a small hole in the roof. Zola's heart pounded. She stepped closer, brushing aside the vines that hung like curtains. Inside, the hut smelled of herbs and old wood. The air was thick with the scent of healing plants, aloe, mint, and wild sage. There were wooden shelves filled with jars of roots and powders. Strange carvings lined the walls, shapes of animals, stars, and circles. In one corner she saw an old stool, a small pot of stew still warm, and a drawing hung carefully above it. Zola stepped closer to look. Her breath caught in her throat. The drawing showed a small girl kneeling beside a weak woman under a tree, the exact moment she had helped Mama Kina years ago. It was drawn with soft, gentle lines, full of emotion. The woman's face looked peaceful and the little girl's eyes sparkled with kindness. Zola touched the edge of the drawing, her fingers trembling. "How could this be here?" she whispered. Then she heard movement behind her, slow, soft footsteps. She turned quickly. From the shadows at the back of the hut, a figure stepped forward. It was an old woman, bent and thin, her face lined with years of time and pain. Her hair was white and her eyes were dim but kind. Zola's heart stopped. She knew that face even after all these years. "Mama Kinna?" she whispered. The old woman smiled gently. Her voice came out weak but full of warmth. "Yes, child, you have come back." Zola ran forward, falling to her knees beside her. "You're alive," she said, tears filling her eyes. "All this time I thought you were gone." Mama Kinna reached out with trembling hands and touched Zola's cheek. "You saved me once, little one," she said softly. "You gave me water when I was dying. I never forgot your face." Zola held her hands tightly. "I came to find you," she said. "A traveler told me about you. He said the necklace I wear once belonged to you." Mama Kinna looked down at the necklace and smiled faintly. "Yes," she whispered. "That necklace was carved for my sister's child, my niece. I made it before the fire took everything." Zola's eyes widened. "Your sister?" Mama Kinna nodded slowly. "My younger sister, Kalia. She had a baby girl, but during the fire the child was lost. We searched for years. I thought she had died. I left the village and lived in the forest, healing those who came, waiting for peace to find me." She paused, her voice trembling. "But when you found me, Zola, something in my heart stirred. I felt something familiar, something I could not explain. And when I saw that necklace around your neck, I knew I had found my sister's child." Zola could hardly breathe. "You mean," she said softly, her voice shaking, "you are my aunt?" Mama Kinna's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, my child. You saved my life without knowing you were saving your own family. You carried the blood of my sister, your mother. The necklace called you back to me." Zola's tears flowed freely. She knelt before Mama Kinna, resting her head on her lap. "All these years I wore this necklace without knowing what it meant," she whispered. "And all along it was guiding me home." Mama Kinna stroked her hair gently. "The forest never forgets, my dear. It brought us together once and it has done so again." They sat together in silence, surrounded by the sounds of the forest, the soft chirping of birds, the hum of distant insects and the whisper of leaves. The old woman's frail hand held Zola's tightly as though afraid to let go. Mama Kinna's eyes grew distant, filled with memories of the past. "Your mother Kalia," she said slowly, "was as kind and brave as you. She gave her life to protect others during that fire. I searched for you but I was too late. I never knew you had survived." Zola looked up at her aunt with tears shining in her eyes. "I don't remember her face," she said sadly. "But sometimes in my dreams I see a woman smiling at me. Maybe that was her." Mama Kinna smiled faintly. "It was. A mother's love never dies. It finds its way into your dreams, your heart, and your kindness." The old woman grew weaker as the day went on. Zola helped her sit near the doorway of the hut, where sunlight fell gently on her face. "You have your mother's courage," Mama Kinna whispered. "And now that I've seen you, my heart is finally at peace." Zola held her tightly, feeling both sorrow and joy. "You are not alone anymore," she said. "You are my family." Mama Kinna smiled, her eyes soft and full of peace. "And you are my hope," she whispered. The forest breeze swept through the open doorway, carrying the sweet scent of herbs and the rustle of leaves. It felt like the forest itself was breathing with them, welcoming their reunion. Zola looked out toward the trees and felt something deep within her, a sense of belonging she had never known before. She had come to find a woman she once saved, and instead she had found her own blood, her own story, her own truth. That night she lit a small fire beside the hut and cooked soup for Mama Kinna. They ate together, laughing softly about old memories and moments of life. The stars shone brightly above the forest, and the wind whispered through the trees as if telling their story to the night. Zola finally understood that every act of kindness carries a purpose, even when one cannot see it right away. Years ago she had saved a stranger, and now that stranger had given her back a piece of her own lost life. As she watched Mama Kinna fall asleep peacefully by the firelight, Zola whispered, "Now I know why I was led here. I didn't just find you, I found my family." And from somewhere deep within the forest, a soft, warm wind blew through the trees, wrapping around them like a gentle embrace, the forest's way of saying, "Welcome home." The morning came softly over the forest, painting the leaves with gold and filling the air with birdsong. Zola woke to the sound of the wind moving through the trees, whispering like a voice she almost recognized. Mama Kina sat outside the hut, her frail hands holding a small pouch made of animal skin. Inside were herbs, seeds, and a few small charms carved from wood and bone. Zola knelt beside her, sensing that this moment was different, quiet, heavy, and sacred. Mama Kina smiled gently and placed the pouch in Zola's hands. "My child," she said softly, "these are the herbs of healing, the same ones your mother and I learned to use when we were young. They will guide you in times of sickness and sorrow." Zola's eyes filled with tears as she looked down at the old pouch. "Auntie, I don't know if I can do what you do," she said quietly. "I only help people in small ways, with food, with comfort. You are the one who heals." Mama Kina shook her head slowly, her voice calm and full of warmth. "Kindness is the first medicine," she said. "Without kindness, no cure truly works. You already carry that in your heart. The forest saw your goodness long ago, and it led you back to me." Zola touched the pouch gently, feeling the weight of what it meant. "You've taught me so much, Auntie," she whispered. Mama Kina smiled faintly, her eyes glimmering in the morning light. "Then remember this, kindness always returns to the one who gives it. The forest remembers every act of love, every touch of mercy. When you give with your heart, the world gives back in its own time." Zola nodded, holding back tears. "I will remember." The old woman looked at her for a long moment, then reached out and touched the wooden necklace around her neck. "Your mother would be proud," she said softly. "You carry both her heart and mine. Promise me you'll use what you've learned to help others, to heal, to bring hope, to remind people that goodness still lives." Zola held her aunt's hand and whispered, "I promise." Mama Kina smiled one last time, her eyes closing slowly as she leaned back against the hut wall. The sunlight touched her face and a soft peace spread across her features. Her breathing slowed, then stopped as the forest grew still around them. Zola sat beside her in silence, tears rolling down her cheeks. The wind blew gently through the trees, carrying the scent of herbs and flowers. It was as if the forest itself was saying goodbye to its healer. She buried Mama Kina beneath the tall tree where they first met, the same tree that had once sheltered a dying woman and a little girl with a kind heart. Zola placed flowers on the grave and whispered, "Rest now, Auntie. The forest will remember you forever." For a long time she stayed there listening to the soft hum of nature. Then she stood, wiped her tears and began her walk back to Makando. The journey felt different now, lighter though her heart was heavy with love and loss. When she reached the village, people gathered around her. They could see the change in her, something calm and wise in her eyes. Zola began to share what she had learned from Mama Kina. She treated sick children with herbs, comforted mothers who had lost hope, and sat beside the old and weak, telling them stories of courage and kindness. At first, people were surprised that one so young could heal. But her gentle hands and warm words brought comfort in ways they could not explain. Soon they began to call her the young healer of Makando. Her small hut became a place where people came from other villages for help. Zola never turned anyone away no matter how poor or weak they were. She would say, "Healing begins when you feel seen. Sit, eat, rest, then we'll find a way." Years passed and her name spread far beyond Makando. People said her herbs carried a magic that could calm the heart and ease pain. But Zola always said the same thing to those who asked for her secret. "There is no magic. Only kindness, and the forest that remembers." Every evening, after tending to her patients, Zola would sit beneath the old baobab tree near her home. She would hold the wooden necklace and the pouch of herbs close to her heart. In the quiet rustle of leaves, she often felt the presence of Mama Kina, soft, peaceful, watching over her. Sometimes she would close her eyes and whisper, "I hope you're proud of me, Auntie." And the wind would blow gently against her face, warm and tender as if answering, "Always, my child." The villagers often asked her where she had learned her healing ways. Zola always smiled softly and said, "From a woman I once saved in the forest, who saved me in return." They would nod, not fully understanding, but her words always stayed with them. For in every person Zola healed, a piece of Mama Kina's kindness lived on. And in every act of love, the forest whispered the same truth that had guided Zola's life: kindness never dies. It returns again and again to those who give it freely. As the years went on, the people of Makando taught their children the story of the young girl who saved a stranger in the forest and grew into a healer who saved them all. They said that when the wind moved gently through the trees, it carried the voices of the two women, one old, one young, reminding everyone that the smallest act of kindness could change a life forever. And every time Zola walked through the forest, the air seemed alive, warm and welcoming. She could almost hear Mama Kina's voice whispering through the leaves, "The forest remembers, my child." Zola would smile, lift her face to the wind and whisper back, "So do I."